Welcome back to Mythic Codex Legends Unveiled, the place where mythology, folklore, and legends come alive. I'm your host Eliza, and tonight we'll uncover the stories that have captivated humanity for thousands of years. Turn the page, our journey begins now. Image this. You're standing on the deck of a wooden ship. It's nighttime. The water around you is almost completely black, and the only thing you can hear is the cracking of the ship beneath your feet and the sound of waves gently hitting the hull. The wind has suddenly stopped. The sea is strangely calm. Too calm. You look over the side of the ship. Nothing. Just darkness. Then somewhere beneath you, splash. You freeze. Another splash. And then another. And suddenly a voice rises from the water. A man's voice. But there shouldn't be anyone there. You look down, and slowly something blue begins to rise from beneath the waves. Tonight, we're heading into the dangerous waters of Scotland's Minch. Because beneath those waves, according to legend, something has been waiting for sailors for centuries. They are known as the Blue Men of the Minch. And if the legends are true, the sea isn't the only thing you should be afraid of. The Minch is a stretch of water separating the northern outer Hebrides from mainland Scotland and Skye. It is so beautiful, but it can also be incredibly dangerous. The water around the Minch are known for powerful currents, rapidly changing weather, and violent seas. And near the Giant Isles, sailors once gave a particularly frightening name to one of the stretches of water, the Shrew Nam Fear Grom, the stream of the Blue Men. According to Scottish folklore, the Blue Men lived beneath these waters and supposedly hiding inside underwater caves. They weren't enormous sea monsters. They were said to look surprisingly human, except for one terrifying difference. Their skin was blue. Some descriptions give them gray face, long arms, white or gray beards, and an almost unnatural strength. And these weren't peaceful creatures simply watching ships pass by. They were said to hunt them. They could rise storms. They could attack vessels, and they wanted sailors beneath the waters. The Blue Men are sometimes called storm kelpies, but don't picture traditional kelpie, the horse-like creature from Scottish folklore. These creatures were something completely different. They were spirits of the sea. Some stories say they would sleep beneath the water when the weather was calm, but when they awoken, the sea awakened with them. Suddenly, the water could become violent. Waves would rise, winds would scream, and ships caught in the middle could be swallowed. And here's where the story gets even stranger. The Blue Men didn't always attack immediately. Sometimes they wanted to play a game that could determine whether you live or die. Image you're the captain of a ship. You've been sailing through the Minch. Well, suddenly you see something moving beside the vessel. A head rises from the water, then shoulders, then a blue-skinned figure appears waist high above the waves. He looks directly at you, and then he speaks, not with a scream, not with a growl, but with poetry. The ship of the Blue men would supposedly challenge the captain to a battle of words. He would give the captain 2 lines of verses. The captain had to answer with 2 lines of his own. And there was no time to think, no time to write anything down. You had to answer immediately. If you couldn't, your ship would be doomed. The blue men would supposedly attack, overturn the vessel, and drag the sailors beneath the waves. But if the captain was clever enough to answer the rhyme, the blue men might retreat. Image that. You're surrounded by supernatural creatures in the middle of a violent sea, and your survival depends on whether you're good at poetry. So, let me ask you this. If you were the captain of that ship, and the blue man suddenly appeared beside you and challenged you to a rhyme, would you ever try to answer? Or would you panic and run? Because honestly, I'm not sure I could come up with a rhyme while staring at a blue man rising out of the ocean. There's no way. I'm probably going to die there. One of the most famous stories tells of a captain who encountered the blue men and was challenged by their chief. The blue man begins his verse. The captain answered. The creature continued, and the captain answered again. Back and forth. The blue man expected fear. Instead, he got confidence. The captain refused to give up the reaction he wanted. And eventually, the blue man realized something terrifying. This captain could match him. The supernatural creature couldn't defeat him through the context of words. So the blue men disappeared beneath the waves. The ship continued on, and the sailors lived. But not every encounter ended so peacefully. One old tale tells of the sailors who spotted a blue man floating on the water, and instead of staying away, they captured him. They pulled the creature onto their ship and tied him up. They thought they had accomplished something incredible. They had captured one of the creatures sailors feared, but they had made one enormous mistake. They hadn't captured him alone. The blue man had companions. As the sailors tried to escape, 2 other blue men came racing through the water. They shouted to each other. Their voices carried across the waves. The captain heard them, and suddenly the ropes weren't enough. He broke free. Then he jumped overboard and disappeared beneath the sea. The sailors were left staring into the water and wondering what exactly they had brought onto their ship. Here's another question for you. Now, image you're one of the sailors. You have a blue man tied up on your deck. You hear 2 more voices approaching from the darkness. You know they're coming for him. Do you cut the ropes and let him go immediately? Or do you try to keep him captive? Because personally, I'd be cutting those ropes so fast. I wouldn't want anything to do with that. The frightening part of the Blue Men legend isn't simply their appearance. It's what they were believed to do to sailors. They weren't interested in scaring people and disappearing. They were associated with shipwrecks, drownings, and death. A vessel could be caught in a rough water. A wave could crash over the deck. Wood could splinter. Men could be thrown into the freezing sea. And beneath them, according to legend, the blue men were waiting. They could supposedly grab struggling sailors and pull them beneath the waves. The ocean would close over their heads, and just like that, they were gone. No grave, no body, nothing but empty water. Now this is where things get interesting, because there are several theories about where this legend may have come from. One possibility connected to the blue men, one the pig, sometimes associated with Latin descriptions of piquet, meaning painted people. Another theory connected to legends to people from North Africa who may have been brought to Scotland during the Viking era. And another possibility is much simpler. Maybe the blue men were simply a supernatural explanation for a very real danger. The Minch is a difficult body of water. Strong currents, storms, waves, fog, and unpredictable weather could make a journey terrifying. And when soldiers watch dolphins, seals, or other animals moving through the waves, their shapes could become something much more mysterious in the darkness. But here's the thing I love about folklore. Sometimes it doesn't matter whether something begin as a misunderstanding, because once a story becomes part of a culture, it becomes something more. It becomes a warning, a tradition, a story told for one generation to another. And apparently, there were ways to keep the blue men happy. Some traditions tell of people making offerings to the sea. One old tradition involved offering ale to the blue men in hopes of keeping the waters calm. The idea was simple: respect the sea, and perhaps the sea would respect you. And honestly, I can understand why people would do it. Because if you're living beside an unpredictable sea, wouldn't you rather have the supernatural beings on your side? So here's my next question for you. If you were a sailor crossing the Minch and someone told you that pouring an offering into the sea could keep the blue men away, would you do it? Even if you didn't believe in them? I think I would, because when you're standing in the middle of a dark ocean, you don't really want to test your luck. I would definitely want to do that. Honestly, the closest I've came to sailing in the sea is being on a car ferry in one of the Great Lakes of Lake Michigan. Now, Lake Michigan is a lake, but it can be very scary too. Um, it's ginormous. You can't see across it. A lot of people think that it's like an ocean, but it's really not. It's fresh water. But honestly, could fresh water could there be a freshwater ocean? Maybe. And if there was, it would definitely be Great Lakes, because they are definitely scary. Because you don't know what's in them. They're still a mystery, because they're so big. Now image you're back on the ship. The wind has disappeared again. The waves are almost completely still. Your crew is quiet. Nobody wants to say what's on their mind. You look toward the water. And then you see it, something blue, just beneath the surface. It's moving alongside the ship. You follow it with your eyes. It disappears. Then suddenly it appears on the other side. Another one, then another one. 3 blue figures surrounding the vessel. You hear laughter. Not human laughter, something deeper. Something carried through the wind. Then the chief rises. He looks directly at you, and he begins to speak. 2 lines, a challenge. Your heart is pounding. Everyone turns towards you because you're the captain, and your answer could decide whether everyone that ship survives. The blue man waits, the sea waits, and now so does everyone listening. So here's another question. If you were standing there with the entire crew staring at you, what would your 2 lines be? Would you try to outsmart the blue man? Would you threaten him? Would you beg him? Or would you say absolutely nothing? Because remember, in this legend, silence might be the worst answer of all. See, if I was the captain, I would probably try to do anything I could to answer, even if it wasn't a good answer, because it's not just my life on the line. It's probably at least 10 to 20 people on the line, too. So I would try my best to answer as good as possible. Let me know what you guys would do in the comments. Let me know. Maybe the blue man were never monsters. Maybe they were the sea given a face, the anger of the waves, the unpredictability of storms, the fear every sailor feels when land disappears beneath them. Maybe people created the blue men because it was easier to image a creature controlling the storm than to accept that the ocean itself could turn against you without warning. Or maybe they really are down there, sleeping beneath the waves, waiting, listening, watching ships pass overhead. And perhaps every once in a while, when the water becomes strangely calm, one of them rises. So, the next time you look out at the ocean and see nothing but waves, remember that the ocean has always been full of stories. Stories of things we can't explain. Stories of sailors who disappeared. Stories of voices coming from beneath the water. And somewhere off the coast of Scotland, there is a stretch of sea with a name that has survived for generations. The Stream of the Blue Men. So, if you ever find yourself crossing the Minch and the water suddenly goes quiet, listen carefully, because if you hear a voice coming from beneath the waves, you might want to have a good rhyme ready, because you never know when the sea might decide to challenge you. And that is the legend of the Blue Men of the Minch. Until next time, keep your lights burning, keep your stories alive, and whatever you do, don't answer the voice beneath the waves.